Welcome to this episode of the Hot Seat. We are talking about the election, which is now 48 hours away. Election day is on Tuesday. It's a big one. A lot of big races up for grabs. We've had several debates, but there are also 8 constitutional amendments on the ballot. To help break those down and explain what you need to know, Melinda Delott from the Public Affairs Research Council of Louisiana. We appreciate your time for being here. Just for your background, you used to be a longtime reporter with the Associated Press. Now you are with this entity in Louisiana doing a lot of good work. So you see this from a very interesting perspective. First off, Melinda, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, 8 constitutional amendments. First off, that's a lot for voters to digest when they get into the election booth on Tuesday.
It absolutely is. Oftentimes when I talk about the amendments to groups right now, I apologize on behalf of the legislature because it's a heavy lift and it's a lot of homework for voters to do this time.
Let's just go right down the list here, starting off with amendments 1 and 2. Both of those deal with money and financial things. Some deal with tax exemptions. Number 1, I know, deals with a cap on the amount of monies in certain state funds and how it can be invested. Sometimes voters say, I don't even really have a clear understanding. So what are amendments 1 and 2? And just a quick Cliff Notes version so people can be familiar with this.
Sure. So Amendment 1 is about 7 trust funds that we have in the state constitution. Currently, there are restrictions on how much of their money, if any, can be invested in the stock market. And this would let the state increase to 65%, the maximum amount of money that the treasurer's office can invest from those 7 different trust funds into the stock market.
Is that a good thing, or is it like letting the legislature play, stock market whiz with people's money?
Well, I mean, it depends on where you sit on this one. Obviously, the people who are in favor of this say you can make a lot more money if you invest in the stock market than if you just let it sit in very safe investments like bonds and certificates of deposit, that kind of stuff. But the arguments against it would be that the stock market's a really volatile place. And so putting your money in there is riskier than leaving it in some of these safer investments.
Number 2 deals with a property tax homestead exemption. And it's very specific, though, for a lot of people who are voting.
Yes. So this is specific to veterans with disabilities. And what we have currently is people who have been qualified by the VA as 100% disabled or 100% unemployable who's a veteran. They currently get a property tax exemption up to $150,000 of value of the property. But the locals have to sign off on it in addition to the state. This would change that to a sliding scale. So anybody who's 100% disabled or unemployable would get a total property tax exemption for their house. And then if you are 70 to 99% disabled, you'd get an exemption up to $120,000. And then those veterans who are 50 to 69% disabled would get a property tax exemption up to $100,000. And it would apply to all parishes. Locals wouldn't have to sign off on it.
Number 3 deals with a campaign issue. It deals with classified civil service employees. We deal with this in New Orleans a lot with the civil service system on who can campaign for what candidates. This kind of frees it up a little bit because we do have people who want to campaign for a sibling or a spouse, and sometimes they're unable to do that.
Right. So currently, there are really strong restrictions against people in the civil service from being able to do any kind of political work. They can't donate to candidates. They can't participate in political parties in terms of actually being, an active member of the party. You can't put up signs in your yard. Well, this would allow, if you're a civil service employee and you have a family member who is running for office, you would be able to show up in photos for them, and you'd be able to show up at campaign events for them. You still wouldn't be able to donate to their campaign, and all this would have to be off hours. But it would definitely loosen the rules for about a dozen different categories considered immediate family members. And so people make the argument that you should be able to support your family member, even if they're a police officer and a firefighter, and you should be able to show up in those appearances and pictures. And of course, the argument against is we have the Civil Service Commission to protect tax dollars, to protect those employees from outside political influence. And so those are sort of the pros and cons on that one.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one, especially here in New Orleans, because this always seems to come up time and time again. At least during, I know statewide, but during elections that we have in New Orleans, it seems like this is always a big talker.
And
Number
it's
four,
50, well, it's 51,000 people who would be impacted by the
right.
change. So it's pretty significant.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a lot of people. Number four is really interesting. It deals with government's ability to waive water charges that are a result of damage to the water system not caused by a customer. If you could break that down a little bit, because we've dealt with all sorts of issues with sewage and water board, especially in the city of New Orleans.
So currently there's a prohibition in the Constitution that keeps state and local government agencies and anything considered a political subdivision from loaning or donating money or anything of value to a person or business. And that has been interpreted to extend to water systems and whether or not they can waive charges. So what this amendment would do is it would let those local water districts, municipalities, political subdivisions, anybody that oversees the water systems to waive charges if the charges stem from water lost due to damage that wasn't in the customer's control. So essentially, like if there's a storm and some sort of the infrastructure is damaged in some place and you don't know and you didn't cause it, but water is coming out and you get charged for it, this would let the water system totally waive those charges. Currently, what they can do is they can spread it out over multiple bills and they can do other things to lessen the impact all on one bill, but they can't just waive it outright. The argument against allowing this, of course, is that there could sometimes be political influence because the people on the water system boards are political appointees. And so there is concern that it could be abused in some fashion.
So number five is interesting because it deals with lowering a millage rate. A lot of people like to hear that, and it's probably one that people say, ooh, how can I pay a lower millage or a lower tax? But it does need some explaining, though, when it comes to that.
I say that this one is the most complicated one to explain, quite frankly. So bear with me for a second.
No, go ahead. This is why we have you on, to break it down in layman's terms for all of our viewers watching.
So currently, all property is supposed to be reappraised at least every 4 years to determine the value of the property. And what is supposed to happen is if the value of the property increases overall, the taxing authority is supposed to lower the millage, the property tax millage that is charged to collect the same amount of taxes, even though the property values have gone up. Now, taxing bodies, that can include your mosquito abatement districts, fire districts, school systems, library systems, any number of things that collect, that have a millage for property tax rates. When currently, if the property tax value goes, if the property values go up and they have to roll back the millages, they are allowed after a public meeting and a 2/3 vote to then roll forward the millage to charge up to the millage rate that voters previously allowed, which would let them collect more in property taxes than they had been. But they only have the authority to determine if they want to roll forward to the highest millage rate given to them by voters before the next property tax reappraisal cycle. So essentially in that 4-year period is the time we're talking about. What the amendment would do is it would give the taxing bodies until the millage rate expires entirely to determine if they want to roll forward to a higher tax collection rate. And the argument is that a lot of taxing authorities knee-jerk to roll forward to the maximum millage rate allowable very quickly because they're afraid of the use it or lose it kind of aspect of this. And so if you give them more time, maybe they won't immediately roll forward. Maybe they'll only partially roll forward. So in theory, you'd be paying a lower millage rate than you might otherwise be. Now, the argument against it is they already have time to make the decision. They can look at their budgets. They can determine how much money they need, and they should be able to make a decision fairly quickly. So hope that's as clear as mud for people because it's very complicated.
Yeah, it's definitely a complicated one. I wish we could talk more about it, but we want to try to get all of them in. That was a good explainer, though. Thank you, Melinda. Number 6 deals with another property tax issue, but specific to Orleans Parish. And I know the assessor, Errol Williams in Orleans, has come out and already taken a position on this one.
Right, absolutely. So this one, it only applies to property tax assessment increases in Orleans Parish, even though the state has to vote for it. So the entire statewide voter system, like all the voters around the state, have to approve it in order for this to take effect, but it only affects Orleans Parish. So currently, when a home is reappraised in that 4-year cycle that we just talked about, the current system requires that if a reappraisal increases the property tax assessment by more than 50%, You have to phase that in over 4 years for the new tax liability so that you give people more time to prepare to make the larger payments. This for Orleans Parish would limit those increases in the increased property tax liability to 10% increase per year. So it spreads it out more over time. The argument being that it gives people more time to plan for it, to understand how much money they're going to have to pay on their property tax assessment. And the reason it's been an issue in Orleans Parish in particular is that owning a home has become increasingly unaffordable in New Orleans, particularly since Hurricane Katrina. And so the argument has been that through no fault of their own, either because of gentrification of neighborhoods or because developers are buying up property for Airbnbs, that these people who have had their homes in their families for generations are getting taxed out of the market because of the high rate of property taxes, and that this would give people more time to plan for those and to adjust to the higher property tax levels. Now, of course, the argument in opposition is that if you don't collect all the property tax revenue that is due to the city, then the city is losing out on money that it could be using to pay for services. And obviously the city has had some difficulties with financing and with being able to afford services.
Right. And it really impacts areas like the Bywater, the Marigny, parts of the 7th Ward, mid-city areas of New Orleans, like you said, that have seen a lot of change since Hurricane Katrina, where home values have doubled, even tripled in some cases, and people just can't afford the property taxes. Let's go to number 7. It's probably the most controversial amendment and a confusing one. It deals with involuntary servitude. And just to bring people up to speed, when people are sentenced in Louisiana for certain crimes, there is the term at hard labor at that. If somebody is sentenced for a crime for first-degree murder or second-degree murder, because obviously Angola is a work farm, but the author of this bill is telling people to actually vote no. I know this is one that you want to talk about and needs a lot of explaining, so I'll just give the floor to you because this is one that is getting a lot of attention, especially here in South Louisiana.
Right. Well, and we always start off, whenever I make these presentations, I start off by explaining that, like you said, the author of the amendment has said because the language has been interpreted in different ways with different implications, he would prefer that people vote down this amendment and that they, wait until he brings back revised language. So that's the starting point. But what it actually does is currently in Louisiana's Constitution, it says slavery and involuntary servitude are prohibited, quote, except in the latter case as punishment for crime. So what that means is we currently allow involuntary servitude in our Constitution as a punishment for crime. What this amendment would do is it would strike that language about in the latter case as punishment for crime, and it would say that slavery and involuntary servitude are prohibited, but that paragraph, quote, does not apply to the otherwise lawful administration of criminal justice. So it's really sort of technical language changes. And the argument that people made in favor of it is that the current provision was tied to Louisiana's history of slavery, segregation, convict leasing, and that they were trying to make an effort to get at that history and change the conversation and change the language to essentially, disassociate it from that history. And they noted that a lot of other states don't have similar language in their constitution at all and have found ways to allow prison labor. Now, the argument against it essentially is that the language is really ambiguous and seems to actually broaden in some ways the allowance for the use of slavery and involuntary servitude, because the idea of punishment for crime versus lawful administration of criminal justice, the lawful administration of criminal justice seems like it could have a broader set of criteria, or it could broaden the allowed uses of slavery and involuntary servitude in the criminal justice system. Also, people who are opposed to this note that the U.S. Constitution already outlaws slavery and involuntary servitude. And they point to several other states have similar language that they are trying to change and have put similar amendments on their own ballots. And a lot of people have pointed to the Tennessee language, which is asking voters to say slavery and involuntary servitude are forever prohibited Nothing in this section shall prohibit an inmate from working when the inmate has been duly convicted of a crime. So I think people are suggesting, who are opposed to the current amendment on the ballot, are saying, let's go back and rewrite it and maybe do something like what Tennessee is proposing, because that language seems a little bit cleaner. But now I will say civil rights organizations are still, even though Representative Edmund Jordan, who sponsored the amendment, is now opposed to his own amendment, civil rights organizations are suggesting people should still vote for the amendment, because they are making the argument that is a very symbolic vote, and it signals an interest in moving away from the allowance of involuntary servitude in the state. So I know it's a little muddy and a little unclear. I suspect no matter what happens with the outcome of this amendment, you will see a debate about this continue.
Yeah, a lot of these are muddy, Melinda. That's why you're here to help bring voters up to speed on exactly what they are voting for. Let's wrap this up really quickly with number 8. It's probably the simplest one. Anybody who is totally or permanently disabled, it requires them every year to get the proper homestead exemption. Is that basically it in a nutshell, that they wouldn't just have it universally?
Well, so there are people who get these special property tax breaks depending on their individual status. So essentially, when you hit certain benchmarks or certain criteria, you get your property tax rates frozen at a certain level, and it never increases no matter what happens with the valuation of your home. And so currently, people who are 65 and older and whose adjusted gross income isn't more than $100,000, they get this frozen property tax rate. And they don't have to, once they've certified their income with their local assessor, they never have to certify it again. They get this frozen property tax level for the rest of their time. People who have disabilities and who qualify for the property tax freeze, they have to recertify their income every year with their assessor's office. And what this amendment would do is it would put them in the same category as people 65 and older, and say once they've certified that their income level is no more than $100,000, they won't have to recertify it every year. They would just be able to do it once and keep the property tax freeze for the duration.
All right. We went through them all right there in about 15 minutes. Melinda Delotte, Public Affairs Research Council of Louisiana, we appreciate your time. We have a link on our website under the Commitment 2022 link going to PAR's website. You're in Baton Rouge. We appreciate you taking the time this Sunday to talk with us really quickly, because I think you do give a lot of good information. Let people know where they can follow you on Twitter, because everybody has it nowadays, and you are a good follow to keep up to speed with what's going on at the Capitol and in Baton Rouge.
Well, thank you. It's at Melinda Delotte. Pretty straightforward. And PAR also has its own Twitter site. It's at PAR Louisiana.
All right, Melinda, thank you for your time once again. Election Day is this Tuesday. You can see this entire segment on our website starting tomorrow morning at WDSU.com.